Head toward Oregon 74 West. Continue for 4 miles.
At first glance, Wellspring doesn't look like much, but more than 175 years ago, thousands of pioneers depended on this lonely spring to survive the journey west. I thought I was stopping at an old spring on the Oregon Trail. Instead, I found myself exploring one of the trail's most remarkable places. Wellspring sits in the high desert of eastern Oregon, about 16 miles east of Butter Creek and 15 miles west of Willow Creek. For emigrants crossing this dry stretch of the trail, it was one of the few dependable places to stop for water. My big goal of going out there was to see the Oregon Trail tracks. Wellspring has 7 miles of tracks. But when I got there, there were a lot of signs for talking about this part of the history and that part of the history, but there were no signs pointing to where the wagon ruts were. It's a historical marker sign. Hardly read it. One of the first things I noticed was this cemetery. It raises an obvious question. Why was there a cemetery at an isolated spring along the Oregon Trail? So this is the cemetery at Wells Springs along the Oregon Trail. These 13 pioneers buried here. Their markers were visible in the 1920s. There's nothing visible anymore. We're walking out into the cemetery. And this is part of the Oregon Trail. So now we're off to look for the tracks. The ruts are supposed to be the deepest ruts in Oregon. And it's supposed to go for 7 miles long. Well, where's the wagon ruts? And there should be another center display area where it has some markers for the tracks. This is the Wellsprings kiosk. It's just a quarter mile from the cemetery. Oh, this looks all new. Yeah, they have brand new signs in here. The interpretive signs quickly revealed that Wellspring was far more than a place to collect water. Thousands of emigrants camped here, and in 1848, one of Oregon's best-known pioneers, Colonel Cornelius Gilliam, was accidentally killed here. And I walked all over the place trying to find the wagon ruts, and I couldn't find them. There's some more signs over here looking for the wagon ruts. This is sheep grazing. And so eventually, I drove further down the gravel dirt road up to the top of a hill. And then looking back down the hill, I could see the wagon ruts. These are wagon ruts. I had to drive up the hill, and then you could see them from a distance. They're much easier to see from a distance, but we're walking right on the ruts right here. So 200,000 people brought their wagons here. And you can see how deep it is. And you can definitely see the ground indents here. These are the ruts heading west toward the Willamette Valley. And then this gives you an idea of the landscape in between. And then now we're facing east, and the white patch is the area where Well Springs was, and where they would usually camp. And then you can see the wagon ruts going towards the east, coming down the hill. Now you got windmills going there. But this is, the Oregon Trail. And these ruts were created by maybe 200,000 people who traveled here with wagons. But if you go there, it might take a while to find exactly where the wagon ruts are. It should put a sign, say maybe here are the wagon ruts. And what makes it even more intriguing is the wagon ruts are not parallel to the road the entire way. They come down through the middle of the bombing range to Well Spring, coming from the north to the south. And then at Well Spring, they take a sharp right going west. And then at that point, it's parallel to the road. But the part that goes from the north-south you can't see it very well, or hardly at all. And you actually, if you go further north, you would need a permit because you're going into the bombing range. Well Spring didn't lose its importance when the Oregon Trail era ended. Before the railroad arrived in eastern Oregon, stagecoaches also stopped here. Today, almost nothing remains to mark that chapter of its history. It's an amazing place, a remote place, one that gets very few visitors. But it's a big part of the Oregon history because that was one of the few sources of water along the route on the Oregon Trail.